Claude, how are you today?
Hi, Tiffany. I'm good.
Good. I'm very excited for this today. So, in a previous episode that we are going to be releasing, we're talking all about the whys around to use Contentful, Next.js, and Stackbit. And the goal of this video, this learning in public, is to get set up with Stackbit. So, you can see on screen here, I have a project that is using Next.js and Contentful. And if I run this locally, I will share with you on screen. It's just a normal uh, project. Here we go. So we've all seen this a million times before, a project that's running locally. In this case, this is a demo of an agency. And what we're going to do today is start harnessing the power of Stackbit because as we all know, if we're working this way, where the developers are working locally, of course, the marketers for anything really have to come to the developers. I remember getting tickets around, can we update the text? Can we add in a different component here or take away a component? And now with Stackbit, we enable the marketers and developers to be able to work in their preferred environment so that they can do that as well.
Yeah. So as I see, this is the getting started project, right?
Yes.
You just set up so there's no Stackbit involved yet. It's just Next.js and Contentful. And by the way, if memory serves, this project is coming directly from Vercel. Like it's one of the examples. It comes with Next.js, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's the unmodified version at this point. Okay.
Exactly. And I'll also too, for people who are watching this, I'll link down below the template from Vercel, as well as our project that we're using in Stackbit as well, so they can check it out.
Okay.
So let's go into the docs, and when we're in the docs, we can see that there's different getting started guides based on how you are coming into Stackbit. So in our use case, we're using Next.js and Contentful. So let's go to getting started. I'm going to scroll down here a bit. All right, so we've already done this where it's set up the example project. You can see here, this is the project we are using. Already created a Contentful space. And we've already done the generate management token. So we've already set up our environment variables. If you're watching this, though, this is super straightforward to follow along and do as well.
So you have a .n file, right? You
Yeah.
should have in your project already a .n file, which is of course it's not in Git, it's in git ignore,
Yeah.
and it has the credentials. Yeah, you don't have to show it. I'm good enough knowing that it's there.
Exactly. We know that much.
Yeah.
And then I just did this part, npm run dev, which you can see, which I just did earlier, which we can see here. So it's running locally.
Yeah.
And then as we can see, we have it running here. So next, Stackbit setup. All right.
Okay, so this is the point where we start getting into Stackbit, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
So let me start with installing these dependencies. I should have them already installed, but let's just go through everything because I know when I'm watching a tutorial, I like when steps aren't skipped all the time.
Yeah.
So paste, npm install, Stackbit Contentful. Perfect. Okay. So that's installed. And what this oops, sorry, let me go back up here. So as it says here, when we are using Contentful, it requires a single development dependency. So this is not something that, and it also highlights that Stackbit does not require any dependencies in production. This is more so for the Contentful side of things. Is that correct in explaining it a lot?
Yeah, pretty much. Maybe I can probably explain that we're going to run in a bit, I guess, as part of this tutorial. We're going to run the stackbit dev CLI command, and it reads the configuration and connects to whatever content sources are configured in the stackbit config file. And in order for the stackbit dev CLI to connect to Contentful and read data, be able to modify data, it needs a package which is specific to Contentful. So we're actually installing this as a development. That's like the -D capital D over there means that it's actually not going to be part of production. And it's not a package that is going to run as part of the website. It's like when you run npm run dev, Next doesn't care about this package. This is basically for the Stackbit CLI and for the config file, which the Stackbit CLI is going to run. So yeah, it's not something that is like another dependency of the website now. It's more about the editing for the visual editor specifically.
Yeah. No, that's good to know. Thank you. Yeah, so it's not going to slow anything down in production and whatnot. So thank you for explaining that. So next up, we have the config file. So this is something that's required, is the basis of every Stackbit project, I would say. You need the config file. This used to be YAML, and now we're moving forward into JavaScript config files to make it more flexible. So let me copy this here and go back here and create this file. And paste. Now let me see these yellow lines. This is, here we go.
Oh, because you have ESLint configured.
Yeah.
Okay. You can easily use this.
All right, so at this point, we have the config file, but if we were to run it at this point, we still need to, the one more step we need to do is be able to use the environment variables, right, Elad?
Yeah, so like looking at the file, we see that, we're initializing content sources. There's only one here. There could be multiple ones. And just one thing to note is that the .env file is actually used by Next.js automatically. It's not yet used by the config file. Actually, it's coming. But for now, I think let's use the same file. Instead of like writing export commands in the CLI, let's use the same like .env package to load it.
And I have installed already the .env package. So it's .env. Where is it?
Yeah.
I think it's at dot. This is right. Is this right?
You know what? Let's go to there's like the contentful minimal starter on GitHub. So in the Stackbit themes organization, there's a good example of that. So we can just
good call.
Yeah, we just play with it, right?
I'll link this down below.
So if you go to the config file.
Yeah.
I think you'll see like
here we go. Yes.
Like 3 commands, right? The 2 imports and then to actually load the env file.
Yeah, here we go. And then to load it, here we go. We can see. So this is pretty standard. Save. Now we actually are loading the env file in. Okay. So next up, let's take this step by step. So let's go back to the docs. And then, we also get told about our ESLint warning that we just had, which is always great. And all right, so going back to the Stackbit CLI that you were speaking about early, now we have to install it. Copy.
Yeah. So the recommendation is to install it globally, so you don't have to install it as part of the package. So you only do this once, and then when you want to update versions, like you can do the same command at latest, and you'll pick up the latest version. Okay.
Perfect.
So we have the CLI installed, and then there's the command to run it.
Stackbit dev, simple.
Yes.
Now let's see. And this will give us a URL here, which we can open up. And we can see even just from opening it up that there's already so much more functionality given to content creators, marketers, anyone who is coming to work on this site.
Can you go to the content tab? Okay, so looking at the content tab here, I know that these are the contents that are in Contentful with the Getting Started tutorials. And so in the previous episode, you've imported all this data. So we know that it's here and it's already editable from here. So this is kind of like CMS UI. In a sense, it's very similar to Contentful's own web UI. So we can see like the content tab is open, meaning we're connected, or the visual editor is connected to Contentful. It's been reading the config file, read the right tokens, connected. Everything seems right. You can even just edit from here, like just edit heading, just yeah, whatever, just to see that editing works as well.
We look to this side here right away. It's updated.
Yeah. But the big missing piece, which is like the point of Stackbit, is being able to do side-by-side editing and visually highlight what you want to edit and so on. And if you look at the like left sidebar, there's the pencil mark and it's grayed out. It's disabled, meaning that we haven't yet told Stackbit anything about the mapping between pages on your site, like URLs, like in this case, like the homepage, the slash one, and which content object is actually representative of this page. So once we do that, that's going to unlock like a huge step in terms of convenience.
So if we go back, based on what you're just saying, if we go back into the docs here, scroll down a bit.
Yeah, we already opened the visual editor, and we looked at the content tab.
Now basic editing. And I know we're going to do a separate video going really in depth in this, but as you mentioned, focusing on page models as well. Let's scroll down a bit and see what it tells us to do. Okay, specifying page models. So Alad, you already kind of went over this, but we can add in, we can specify page models right in our JavaScript configuration file as well. So let me copy what the documentation has here. And also too, before I save this, one thing that for me, I'm a visual learner and it helped me really when I was learning about this is, so this page, as you said, let me go back to project and go into Contentful just to show where it's coming from. I'm going to have to log into Contentful here.
Yeah, I think it will be good to show, what it means and where it's coming from.
So if we go down to, which one did we do? Page.
Let's maybe start with the content model. So now we're in the content tab. Let's look at the models. So there is the page model here.
Yeah.
Right. And by the way, I will note that there is like the nice human readable name, and there's like an ID. So if you look to the right, I think you'll see the content type ID. Yeah. So if you're using Contentful API, or if you're configuring the schema, anything about the model in Stackbit, you need that ID, which doesn't change.
So this ID here.
So what we want to say is like, and this I think is important, like Contentful itself, like virtually any headless CMS doesn't have a built-in concept of a page. Like everything is like abstract nested content, deeply nested content, which gets marketers and developers confused. But for Stackbit, there is this concept of models that are actually mapping to a page URL. So what we want to do now, in order to tell Stackbit, hey, how content objects map to pages, is we're going to mark, or specifically mark or configure the right models and tell Stackbit about them. So we know that in this content space, in this schema, you have this model called page. And also, if we look at the page model, if you zoom out a bit, so we look at the list of fields, and there's like, it's very common to have a slug field. So the slug field, it's like a URL-friendly or URL-safe version of the titles. And if you change the title, usually the slug stays the same. So if you make little fixes, you don't want to change the slug. So this is all very common in CMSs. But like to Contentful, yeah, they know it's a slug field, but they don't really know how it maps to URL and so on. But for us, we know that the easiest way to have URLs and nested URLs is just to use the slug. And that's how, if I'm correct, like that's how the Next.js application is generating pages. We might see that in a minute and actually go there and see. So in terms of the configuration, what we're saying here under models is something saying, hey, for the page model, which is like the key here.
Yeah.
Um,
In a bit.
yeah. The page model is actually, for Stackbit, treated as a page type model.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in order to be able to make this content be a URL or translate to a URL and back and vice versa, take the slug field and just use that. So this is a very simple, it can be arbitrarily complex or it could be a function, whatever. But in this case, just take the slug and use it as the URL.
So Elad, just to kind of reiterate, so what you're saying, just in my own words, when processing this. So this page here is the content ID coming from Contentful here. So whatever, if this was Elad, then this would be Elad. It's whatever that ID is, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then the slug here is coming from, I'm flipping back and forth. I'm going to make people not this. But the slug there is coming from this field here, slug.
Yeah, so that means that when Stackbit Dev loads, it's going to look at all the actual content objects of type page, and it's going to, in order to know the URL, it's going to take the value of the slug field and say, okay, this is the URL. And in this case, there's like a one-on-one mapping. The slug field equals what the URL is. But of course, there could be any sorts of mapping. And what we want to do here is just create a mapping that matches what the application already does. So this is the Next.js application. If we go, actually, let's go into Pages, the Pages folder here. And there's like, on the Explorer view, there's what they call like the optional catch-all, like this weird thing. Yeah. So if you look a bit, scroll down a bit. Actually scroll, see, here it's up.
And I'm zoomed in, so it's all a little different.
Yeah, there's a Next.js thing called get static paths, like give me all the paths, and it calls this function get page paths. And like if I go in, we'll probably see that it like looks at all the content objects of type page and uses the slug.
So this is this here, like the static function. This is specific to Next.js. Is that correct?
Yeah. So Next.js has different ways to, you could have static pages, server-side pages. There's all kinds of dynamic routes. In this case, what it does is, hey, tell me what are all the pages, like all the URLs that I have to generate. And this is like a catch-all. So it's gonna, if you look here, it's gonna get through the Contentful client. It's gonna get all the content object of type page content type ID, probably says page as well. Yeah. And then it's going to extract the slug and it's going to return that. So I think what's important to note, and for me, I had to wrap my head around this for a minute when I started with Stackbit, is the application already has this mapping. And the application is the one that controls the mapping. And what the Stackbit config is actually stating is just matching this existing configuration, so that also we know, like we're not embedded in Next.js or whatever. We have to know from the URL what's the content object, from the content object what's the URL. So we have our own mapping that should match what the website is already doing.
And the reason that, and then to kind of to wrap my head around it even further, so because of what you just said, we need to know all of this so we can understand, so we can classify it as type, so we can make pages essentially. Because like you said, going back to Contentful or other CMSs, they don't define that. So that's why, that's one of the benefits that we're doing here.
Yeah. So once you want to, when you want to have a visual editor and navigate between pages and have the editor know like which page equals what content object, you have to supply this extra information that you don't have in the CMS. Simple as that. One thing I would say is, like many Stackbit features, this is something that could be done gradually. So if you have a complex application already, like a complex website with lots of routes and paths and all that, you don't have to declare them up front. You can start with the type that you care about the most or want to POC with. And then if we have like other models for blog posts and products and I don't know, whatnot, and we want to map those as well, we can do that later. For now, we can just start with the pages. So this is a simple application. I think there's only one content model type, which is a page. There's like no multiple, but in a real application, there's going to be multiple ones, but we don't have to,
That's
cover all of them straight away.
Yeah, that's a really good call out, because I know a lot of people who will be watching this video and who use Stackbit. They are working on very large applications, so it's good to highlight that as well. All right, let me go back into. Actually, let me just flip here.
It's already open.
It's already open. Where are we?
Yeah, and it's actually, I was thinking, right, this is a recorded call, so it might not work just because it's a demo, but no, it's actually, it picked up the changes automatically.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we already have the sitemap. So the sitemap, now what happened is, so the Stackbit CLI has actually looked at all the contentful content objects, found the one which are of type page, looked at the slug, extracted out, and created this list. And the other cool thing that happened is, like, there are two cool things that are now possible. One is, if you look at the pencil icon, it's now enabled. So it knows what the content object is. So this is like the same fields editor that you can get in the content tab, but now it's correlated with what you see. And
exactly.
And you make changes. That's due to another feature that can seem magical, which is called like automatic content reload, which only happens within the editor. It's not really magic. It's totally controllable, configurable. I don't want to talk it now. I mean, probably but suffice to say that, that's not necessarily just for Next.js, but we do it efficiently for Next.js and other platforms. We know how to automatically refresh just the data. By the way, if you open the page, just open the pencil again. Just one nifty feature. If you then use the sitemap to navigate to another page, sitemap on the top, like the center top of the frame.
Oh, sorry. Yes, the sitemap. I was so focused on the page. Yeah. Go to.
And if you go to another page.
Oh, I think this one's
empty. I think the page is just empty.
Yeah, the page
doesn't have anything. Yeah.
Started.
Pages are good. I will tell you even more. Because Stackbit editor, we're using Next in development mode, right? So we could actually write code in the application that when you're in development mode, show some kind of empty state notification, but don't do the same in production.
Yeah, that's a good,
just for the editor is something saying, hey, no sections here yet. But it will only appear when you're in the editor.
Yeah, we should actually custom. That should be for maybe next time, or maybe when we start the video next time, we'll already have that done, and then people can see that we've done that, because it's a good feature to have for a good configuration.
Yeah, and then the other thing we could do, since it knows about pages, we could add a page already. Right.
Go page. So we have about us talent. Let's call this, what should we call this? Features. Maybe it's the features of the website. And then we're adding in our unique slug here.
Yeah.
Perfect. And then, as kind of going back to what you said, if we configure it that it has something here, so it's not just empty to begin with, but of course it's empty.
Yeah, if you do go to the page editor, I mean, we could start adding sections, and then you'll see something, and suddenly it feels alive.
Exactly. Let's do, I know this was features, but pricing options is kind of around features.
Yeah.
So let's see.
Yeah, so it's not an error. It's an existing page. It just didn't have anything.
Exactly.
That's why presets, I mean, we're way before like talking about presets and all that, but usually for editors, it's not just about empty states. You want them to have all the nice templates like pre-existing. So Stackbit makes it pretty easy for them to save presets both at the component level and at the page level. But in order to enable that, we'll need to start talking about annotations.
Yes, which is
Um,
coming soon. Well,
yeah.
coming soon in the video form. Of course, it's
Yeah,
to
yeah. And already exists in the
clarify.
product.
Yeah, but
Uh,
coming soon to video. So that's
yeah.
good.
So,
This is
yeah.
great. We did covered, I think, a lot in a very short amount of time. Reminding everyone where we started was just with, let me see here. From here, editors, marketers not being able to add pages, couldn't edit content directly in the visual editor, to now with Stackbit in a very short amount of time. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. And you know what? As you go into more real life, like complex websites, the data model, the content model becomes so much more complex, and usually it becomes like deeply nested. So
Yes.
that's where like editing in the contentful UI, as it is, like the vanilla you experience, gets to be very confusing and hard. And I would say not just for non-technical people.
Yeah.
It's just not it's just not human friendly, because I would say we think as people, we think visually. We see something, we want we want to clone that experience, we want to touch up this or move this up or down. And
Mhm.
then contentful, or for it's not a downside of contentful. It's like
Yeah.
inherent in any CMS. It forces you to think about the content model and go like back and forth, projecting the visual into the content model and back.
Yeah.
So right now it's like a simple model, but as we go deeper into sections and subcomponents and
Yeah.
atomic design and so on, the difference between just directly visual editing and editing the data model, the nested data model, becomes much more apparent.
Exactly. No, it's very good to highlight as well. And I think we got to, as we continue this video series, we got to demo a project that is quite complex. I feel like is on the horizon for us, just to show that as well. But thank you for at least explaining that in the meantime.
Yeah. By the way, a good example, like we're building, I'm not even sure it says so on the website,
Mhm.
but I think that's a major project that we're building our own website with Stackbit. So all
Yeah,
these
yeah,
patterns of how to do a bigger site, a real life site, is actually something that we're doing daily, and
yeah.
um, eating your own dog food, or whatever the term is.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we're dog fooding basically every day.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
maybe there's a place for an episode or some content about
Good.
how we did the website and what we learned.
I like that. Okay, that's yes. And for those who are watching, please comment if this is something you want to see, because I think that'd be really interesting to share and just put it out there with the world.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alad. This has been really wonderful. And I'll link a bunch of resources down below, including the docs and the project that we are working on. So we will see you all soon.